We're prepared to offer you 5 million Kruger. Kaz pocketed the pistol. He wasn't afraid for his life now, just irritated that this Fink had wasted his time. This may come as a surprise to you, Van Eck, but we canal rats value our lives just as much as you do yours. 10 million. There's no point to a fortune. I won't be alive to spend. Where's my hat? Did your tide maker leave it behind in the alley? 20. Kaz paused. He had the eerie sense that the cardfish on the walls had halted a mid-leap to listen. 20 million Kruger. Van Eck nodded. He didn't look happy. I need to convince a team to walk into a suicide mission. That won't come cheap. That wasn't entirely true. Despite what he said to Van Eck, there were plenty of people in the barrel who didn't have much to live for. 20 million Kruger is hardly cheap, Van Eck snapped. The ice court has never been breached. That's why we need you, Mr. Brecker. It's possible Bo Yulbayur is already dead, or that he's given up all his secrets to the Furidians. But we think we'd have at least a little time to act before the secret of Yurta Parem is put into play. If the Shu have the formula, Yulbayur claimed he'd managed to mislead his superiors and keep the specifics of the formula secret. We think they're operating from whatever limited supply Yulbayur had left behind. Greed bows to me. Maybe Kaz had been a bit too cocky on that front. Now Greed was doing Van Eck's bidding. The lever was at work, overcoming Kaz's resistance, moving him into place. 20 million Kruger. What kind of job would this be? Kaz didn't know anything about espionage or government squabbles, but why should stealing Bo Yulbayur from the ice court be any different from liberating valuables from a mercer safe? The most well-protected safe in the world, he reminded himself. He needs a very specialized team, a desperate team that wouldn't balk at the real possibility that they'd never come back from this job. And he wouldn't be able to just pull from the dregs. He didn't have the talent he needed in the ranks. That meant he'd have to watch his back more than usual. But if they managed it, even after Per Haskell got his cut, Kaz's share of the scrub would be enough to change everything, to finally put into motion the dream he'd had since he first crawled out of a cold harbor with revenge burning a hole in his heart. His debt to Geordie would be paid at last. There would be other benefits, too. The Church Council would owe him, to say nothing of what this particular heist would do for his The Church Council would owe him, to say nothing of what this particular heist would do for his reputation. To infiltrate the impenetrable ice court and snatch a prize from the bastion of the Fjordan nobility and military might? With a job like this under his belt and that kind of scrub at his fingertips, he wouldn't need Per Haskell anymore. He could start his own operation. But something was off. Why me? Why the dregs? There are more experienced crews out there. Micah started to cough, and Kaz saw blood on his sleeve. Sit, Van Eck instructed gently, helping Micah into a chair and offering the Grisha his handkerchief. He signaled to a guard. Some water. Well, prodded Kaz. How old are you, Mr. Brecker? 17. You haven't been arrested since you were 14, and since I know you are not an honest man, any more than you are a honest boy, I can only assume that you have the quality I most need in a criminal. You don't get caught. Van Eck smiled slightly then. There's also the matter of my Dicapel. I'm sure I don't know what you mean. 6 months ago, a Dicapel oil worth nearly 100,000 Kruger disappeared from my home. Quite a loss. It was, especially since I had been assured that my gallery was impenetrable, and that the locks on its doors were foolproof. I do seem to remember reading about that. Yes, admitted Van Eck with a small sigh. Pride is a perilous thing. I was eager to show off my acquisition, and the lengths I'd gone to in order to protect it. And yet, despite all my safeguards, despite dogs and alarms and the most loyal staff in all of Ketterdam, my painting is gone. My condolences. It has yet to surface anywhere on the world market. Maybe your thief already had a buyer lined up. A possibility, of course, but I'm inclined to believe that the thief took it for a different reason. What would that be? Just to prove that he could. Seems like a stupid risk to me. Well, Who can guess at the motives of thieves? Not me, certainly. From what I know of the ice court, whoever stole my decapal is exactly who I need for this job. Then you'd be better off hiring him or her. Indeed, but I'll have to settle for you. Vanek held Kaz's gaze as if he'd hoped to find a confession written between his eyes. At last Vanek asked, We have a deal then? Not so fast. What about the healer? Vanek looked baffled. Who? You said you gave the drug to a Grisha from each order. Mick is his tide maker. He's your ethereal Nick. Right. The fabricator who mocked up that gold was a material Nick. So what happened to the corporal Nick? The healer. Vanek winced slightly, but simply said, Will you accompany me, Mr. Brecker? Wearily, keeping one eye on Micah and the guards, Kaz followed Vanek out of the library and down the hall. The house dripped Merchant Wealth, walls paneled in dark wood. Floors tiled in clean black and white. All in good taste, all perfectly restrained and impeccably crafted. But it had the feel of a graveyard. The rooms were deserted, the curtains drawn, the furniture covered in white sheets so that each shadowy chamber they passed looked like some kind of forgotten seascape cluttered with icebergs. Hode. Now the name clicked into place. There had been some kind of incident at Hode's mansion on the Geldstraat last week. The whole place had been cordoned off, and the crawling was sad watch. Kaz had heard rumors of a firepox outbreak, but even Inej hadn't been able to learn more. This is Councilman Hode's house, Kaz said, skin crawling. He wanted no part of a plague, but the merchant and his guards didn't seem remotely concerned. I thought this place was under quarantine. What happened here is no danger to us, and if you do your job, Mr. Brecker, it never will be. Vanek led him through the doors and into a manicured garden, thick with the new nectar scent of early crocuses. That's not how I'm going to say that word. The smell hit Kaz like a blow to the jaw. Memories of Jordy were almost too fresh in his mind, and for a moment, Kaz wasn't walking through the canal-side garden of a rich merch. He was knee-deep in spring grasses, hot sun beating down on his cheeks, his brother's voice calling him home. Kaz gave himself a shake. I need a mug of the darkest, bitterest coffee I can find, he thought, or maybe a real punch to the jaw. Vanek was leading him to a boathouse that faced the canal. The light fluttering out between its shuttered windows cast patterns on the garden path. A single city guard stood at attention beside the door as Vanek slid the key from his pocket and into the heavy lock. Kaz put his sleeve up to his mouth, and the stink from the closed-up room reached him. Urine, excrement. So much for spring crocuses. The room was lit by 2 glass lanterns on the wall. A group of guards stood facing a large iron box, shattered glass littering the floor at their feet. Some wore the purple uniform of the Stadtwatch, others the sea-green livery of the Hode House. Through what Kaz now understood had been an observation window, he saw another city guard standing in front of an empty table and 2 overturned chairs. Like the others, the guard stood with his arms loose at his sides, face blank, eyes forward, gazing at nothing. Vanek turned up the light on one of the lanterns, and Kaz saw a body in a purple uniform, slumped on the floor, eyes closed. Vanek sighed and crouched down to turn the body over. We've lost another, he said. The boy was young, the bare scraps of a mustache on his upper lip. Vanek gave orders to the guard who had let them in, and with help from one of Vanek's retinue, They lifted the corpse and took it from the room. The other guards didn't react, just continued to stare ahead. Kaz recognized one of them. Henrik Dahlman, the captain of the Stadtwatch. Dahlman? He queried, but the man made no response. Kaz waved a hand in front of the captain's face, then gave him a hard flick on the ear. Nothing, but a slow, disinterested blink. Kaz raised his pistol and aimed it directly at the captain's forehead. He cocked the hammer. The captain didn't flinch, didn't react. His pupils didn't contract. He's as good as dead, said Vanek. Shoot, blow his brains out. He won't protest, and the others won't react. Kaz lowered his weapon, a chill settling deep into his bones. What is this? What happened to them?